On the 8th episode of WCPW Loaded, 14 men battled for the right to face WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle at the Refuse to Lose pay-per-view. It was, of course, the bumper Kurt Angle Invitational Rumble. In the end, it was the then local hero, now of course the prestigious one, Joe Hendry, who emerged victorious, last eliminating Ethan Carter III to earn his spot opposite the Olympic gold medal winner that October. Come the No Regrets pay-per-view on April 29th in Newcastle upon Tyne, our next WCPW pay-per-view, of course, reigning WCPW champion Drew Galloway will actually defend his title in the Rumble against 29 other stars. This 30-man Rumble is over twice the size of the Kurt Angle Invitational, and that could well be the difference maker for Drew Galloway. But why is Drew Galloway in this match? Well, of course, you may know that Drew recently signed for NXT under the name of Drew McIntyre, the name he used to go under in his prior WWE run. He only has a few more dates to fulfill on the independent scene before he leaves WCPW. Therefore, our general manager has decided to put Galloway in the toughest title defense yet for any world champion in the company to date. The threats are huge for Drew, and even though he has Rumble experience in both WWE and WCPW, there's absolutely no guarantees that he will leave No Regrets with his title reign still intact, and our general manager, of course, has promised to resort to extreme measures should he do so. I'm Jack from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 interesting facts you need to know about the WCPW No Regrets 30-man Royal Rumble. Number 10, apart from rules governing exactly how wrestlers are eliminated, which is by pinfall or over the top rope, there are actually no other rules. This could well come into play during No Regrets and make Drew Galloway's task even tougher because referees will be powerless to protect him from things such as weapons, chair shots, tables. Last time we saw Doug Williams brandish a copy of the Daily Mail newspaper. You know, if a monster like Primate was in the bout, for example, everyone else would be looking over their shoulders to see which implement of torture he would be using. There are just so many destructive guys on the WCPW roster, and Drew, to be fair to him, is one of them. He's fearsome enough without a weapon in his hand. Who knows how fearsome he could be with one. So yes, even though there are minimal rules in the No Regrets Rumble, it remains to be seen whether they will help or hinder our champion. Maybe Martin Kirby will even get to use that pink steel chair we keep seeing turn up at WCPW events. Number 9, Primate has the most eliminations in the shortest time. Now, speaking of Primate, and I really don't want to dwell too long, you know, he really scares the shit out of me, that man. But nevertheless, I am contractually obliged to read out these facts. So if the Kurt Angle Invitational Rumble proved anything last year, it is that Primate is one of the most dangerous and feared men in all of WCPW. Tell me about it. Even though he was eventually thrown over the top rope by Joe Hendry, the 3-minute barrage of violence Primate inflicted on those in the ring was enough to turn heads. In just 180 seconds of ring time, the single most hardcore man on the roster managed to score a pinfall victory over Joe Coffey and then brutally smashed Liam Slater to the point that the youngster was knocked out cold and thus unable to continue. Under the guidance of James R. Kennedy, the beast that is Primate will be smarting from his best of 7 series loss to Rampage, and he'll therefore be out to prove a point. This Rumble could well be the moment that Primate realizes his true potential and could spell disaster for not only our champion Drew Galloway, but for the entirety of the WCPW roster, and of course, staff. Number 8, Joe Hendry has the most eliminations to date. Much has changed for Joe Hendry, local hero. Well, the prestigious one, Joe Hendry. Since he won that Kurt Angle Invitational Rumble, he is now, of course, a far more dastardly piece of work as the leader of the Prestige. Looking back to that Kurt Angle Invitational, the Edinburgh native could boast 3 eliminations. Not only did he hurl Primate and, of course, Ethan Carter III over the top rope, he also pinned Doug Williams earlier in the match. Although only 3 eliminations, it is still worth remembering that only 14 men were in the match, and despite the quite small scale, it is still relatively impressive. However, it is true that if Joe Hendry does want to capture that WCPW championship, he will have to eliminate a lot more than 3 men this time around, probably. Also, it might worth be taken into account the fact that the stakes are so important for Joe Hendry. Not only does everyone want to be WCPW champion on the roster, but it's especially personal for Joe. He's come so close on so many occasions, and it's the title that, in one way or another, has caused him to lose the respect of those that respected him the most. I'm talking about Joseph Connors and, of course, Kurt Angle. Number 7, beware of the ropes. It sounds pretty obvious to say in a Rumble match to avoid the ropes, but in our Rumble, of course, pinfalls counted as well. Despite this, the vast majority of eliminations came via traditional Rumble means. Last year, a grand total of 8 WCPW stars were thrown over the top rope to the floor during the Kurt Angle Invitational. Martin Kirby, El Ligero, Travis Banks, Marty Scurll, EC3, Primate, Rampage, and even Drew Galloway himself. Only 4 stars were actually pinned during the match, and they were Doug Williams, Prince Amin, who of course replaced Gabriel Kidd, who'd earned his way into that match, Joe Coffey, and Pete Dunne. Speaking of Doug Williams, the man himself is confirmed for the Championship Rumble, and here looking to be last a lot longer than the 18 minutes he clocked up last time around, when of course he was known as Mr. Brexit. Number 6, there are hidden dangers lurking outside of the ring as well. As if tumbling over the top rope or being pinned isn't enough to worry about, the Kurt Angle Invitational Rumble proved that outside forces can have an influence too. Let's take Big Damo, or Killian Dane as he's now known, as a classic example. The big Irishman wasn't even an official competitor in the Rumble, but he ensured that Moose didn't make it to the ring. Originally, of course, there was going to be a 15-man Rumble, but Damo ensured that Moose never even made it between those ropes. This is very, very interesting because not only will Drew have to worry about those 29 other men looking for his championship, he's also going to have to worry about what our general manager said. We obviously know that our general manager has had a change of heart these days and he's a lot more pleasant to work with, but he's not above being dastardly now and then, and he did of course promise that extreme measures would be taken. Number 5, El Ligero lasted the longest during our previous Rumble. A former internet champion and one of the most competitive men ever to grace our ring, the high-flying El Ligero is one of the most popular stars with fans due to his work ethic and clear affinity for sportsmanship. He therefore flew in the face of the theory that suggests that only the dirtiest fighters will survive in Rumble circumstances. The Mexican sensation outlasted everyone else in terms of time spent in the Kurt Angle Invitational by almost 10 full minutes last year, clocking in at an amazing 31 minutes and 6 seconds before finally being eliminated by EC3. Could this make Ligero one of the favourites for the Rumble match, and if so, just how long will he have to last? Number 4, the numbers game might come into play, and yes, I'm talking about the Prestige. There wasn't a group as threatening as the Prestige during the Kurt Angle Invitational Rumble last year. Formed by Joe Hendry, Joe Coffey, BT Gunn and Travis Banks, this collective brings together some of the finest pro wrestlers on the UK circuit today, and they of course must be considered a huge worry for Drew Galloway's WCPW Championship reign, and also a huge worry for anyone else in the match not in the Prestige. Only BT Gunn has been confirmed for entry into the Rumble so far, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he won't have backup. Don't forget previous points about hidden dangers lurking outside of the ring, as well as in between the ropes as well. Of course, you have to think that the absolute worst situation for Drew Galloway would be all 4 members of the Prestige drawing spots in the Rumble, but even if they don't, you know, he's always going to have one eye looking over his shoulder. Number 3, Martin Kirby gets his first WCPW title shot since October. Martin Kirby's road to the WCPW Championship has certainly been an eventful one. He is arguably the most popular star on the WCPW roster with our fans. They've really taken to Martin Kirby, and it's therefore so heartbreaking that he's never quite captured that championship. He was of course screwed out of the chance to defeat Joseph Connors at Refuse to Lose by Adam Pacitti. The less said about that, the better, I think. Kirby has actually of course gone on to become GM himself as well. Now the man from Thirsk, North Yorkshire prepares for his first crack at the WCPW Championship since last October, and he shouldn't have to worry about Adam Pacitti's interference this time. Number 2, the defending champion has lost only one singles match in WCPW. Drew Galloway's WCPW Championship reign began at Delete WCPW, an event that I can't remember too much of, but I seem to remember a lot of screaming. I woke up in the middle of the night after, and I don't know what happened. Anyway, sorry about that. Galloway won a 3-way steel cage match in the main event against Joe Hendry and the former champion Joseph Connors. The dominant Galloway has taken on all comers since. No one should forget the fact that Drew has only lost one singles bout during his entire time in WCPW, and that of course brought on a horrific neck injury suffered via a righteous killer DDT by Joseph Connors. Ever since then, the Scot has been undefeated in singles action, boasting wins against competitors as diverse as Moose, Ricochet, Bully Ray, Joe Hendry, Will Ospreay, Rampage, and many others as well. Number 1, former WWE Royal Rumble winners could enter this match. Now, No Regrets doesn't just see the best of WCPW's regular roster, it also has 2 very special guests in the forms of Alberto El Patron, who we've of course welcomed back before, and Rey Mysterio making his WCPW debut. El Patron will of course be looking to hunt down the Prestige as he takes on Joe Coffey, while Rey Mysterio will be looking to put on a showcase and hopefully get his career off to the best start possible in WCPW as he takes on El Ligero. Even though both are already involved in huge matches on the iPay-per-view, El Patron and Mysterio may well also fancy a crack at our championship. Crucially, and this is very, very important, both men have an edge that no one else in the Rumble so far has. They, of course, have both won a WWE Royal Rumble in 2006 for Rey Mysterio and 2011 for El Patron. Should El Patron enter himself in the Rumble despite already having another match on the card, could he rightly be considered the favourite overall? He does, of course, have that WWE Royal Rumble win, and not only that, but it was the biggest Royal Rumble in history, of course boasting 40 superstars at the time. Well, hopefully I've given you some idea of the kind of favourites heading into our Rumble at No Regrets, but then again, in those sort of matches, it is total anarchy. Who knows who is going to walk out of No Regrets as the WCPW champion. Don't miss No Regrets live on April 29th, or you can watch it live on iPay-per-view via WhatCulture Extra or via Fight TV. And all that's left to say is that I've been Jack from WhatCulture.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you soon.
No!